Hi, I'm Wade Kingsley, and welcome to episode 4 of the Creative Coach podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about energy levels because I'm actually feeling pretty flat at the moment, but I'll tell you why shortly. But first of all, just again, thanks for joining us on the podcast. Hopefully, you're getting a lot out of these one-to-one coaching sessions we're having as part of the program. Now, as a creative coach, one of the things I pride myself on is actually being able to be enthusiastic and positive and supportive for you and other people that I coach. But sometimes I don't feel that myself. And this week, actually, I've been feeling a little bit flat. So it gave me a chance to talk to you about one of the most important things around creativity, and that's energy. We often think of it as flow, and sometimes we can identify these as moments where we just don't feel it, however you want to describe it. We're just not feeling it. We're not feeling like we can be productive, and we're certainly not feeling like we can be creative. Well, the first thing to know is that's a very normal feeling. We all have it, even creative coaches such as me. We all have these moments where we just don't feel like we can either get into a task or get into a project or feel very positive or any of those kind of emotional reactions or ways of working that help us to actually produce creativity or produce anything really. So one of the most important things to identify, I think, is that this is normal and also that it's temporary. It's very, very rare, in fact, almost highly unlikely, that you'll be in a permanent state of either feeling flat or alternatively feeling really high and feeling really active and being able to produce anything creative. This is obviously just because we're humans. We have the normal range of emotions that we all do. And even as creators, we can't be positive all the time. And we certainly can't be feeling it, whatever it is, all the time. So for me, one thing I always look at in terms of energy levels is what's causing it. Is there something that I'm feeling like I'm particularly feeling low on energy or can't be able to produce? There's a couple of key suspects as always. Number one is always sleep. It's very important that we're well rested. And it's not just the amount of sleep that you have in terms of the time, it's the kind of sleep you have. And for creativity, we need what's called restorative sleep, where we're basically restoring our natural levels of energy and our brain power to be able to get up and go again the next day. If you're someone who occasionally has a bad sleep, and hey, let's face it, we all do, it's important to try and think about ways you can have a better sleep. Now, screens, always a problem in the bed. I'm guilty of this as much as anyone, is having a look at your phone before you go to sleep. But if you can kind of put a bit of gap, put a bit of time in between when you're going to bed and the last time you look at the phone, that's always better. So I think as a golden rule, 30 minutes. If you can look at your phone 30 minutes before you go to bed, set your alarm, check it again like I do, and check it again and again to make sure you have set it. Then put it aside and try and do something else for 30 minutes. This might be breathing, might be meditation. It can be reading if you like, not on the screen, but reading a book, or just doing something that kind of takes you to another place. Maybe you listen to a podcast like this one. Maybe you decide to have a daydream where you can actually sort of lie there with your eyes open, but kind of thinking about something creative. But sleep is, again, one of those kind of core functions that we all need, but particularly if we're trying to be our most creative self. So if you've got your sleep under control, that's one thing. Another area to look at is where you get your natural energy. Now, I am a natural introvert. That may surprise you because here I am on a podcast and I do conference speaking and I do workshops with lots of people. And you might assume that I'm an extrovert, but actually naturally where I get my energy from is internal. And some people think that introvert versus extrovert means you kind of like being alone or you like loud noises and parties. And while that's certainly true of some introverts or extroverts, it really talks about your energy source. Some people feel like when they're on their own, they feel like they're not getting a lot of energy. So they'll go and see a crowd of people, a bunch of friends. Maybe they'll go to a concert or a gig, or maybe they'll do something that involves getting their energy externally from other people. If you're like me and you feel a bit more introverted, then usually what happens is you try and get your energy from doing things on your own. So for me, it's reading. Sometimes it's going for a walk on the beach on my own. Sometimes it's just being able to watch some junk, rubbish TV, something that I can do that just involves me and not a high level of energy on my part. And then when you find that maybe you're having a bit of a flat spot, your energy level isn't great, it's probably because you've overdosed on one or the other. If you're an introvert, maybe you've had a little bit too much extroversion, which is certainly what I've had lately. I've just come back from a trip overseas. I was speaking at conferences in front of hundreds of people. I've been running lots of workshops. I've basically been every day doing something extroverted. And so now it's time for me to tap back into my introversion and just sort of do my own thing for a little while. Flip side, maybe if you're an extrovert and you feel like your energy levels are low, maybe you haven't been dosing too much on the introversion, and maybe you need to kind of find a little bit of time for yourself and do your own thing. So once you've got your sleep under control and then you've worked out your energy levels, how you're balanced out between the introversion, extroversion, and where you're getting that from, the last thing I tend to look at when I'm coaching people is, what is the motivation? What are you currently working on? Is there something that you're working on that perhaps doesn't feel that motivational? Let's face it, sometimes, mostly for work reasons, we're doing tasks that we don't particularly enjoy creatively. That doesn't mean they're not important, and it doesn't mean they're not worthwhile, but perhaps they're not ticking that box of, I really feel my creative energy coming to life. So again, it's about trying to find that balance. Maybe you've been overdosing. Maybe I shouldn't use that word, but you know what I mean. Maybe you've been having too much of work that is a bit repetitive in task, a bit boring. Perhaps you don't get a lot of personal fulfillment out of it. And it's time to tap into some things that do give you enjoyment. Now, you don't have to kind of throw everything away and just go, well, I'm not going to do any of the tasks I don't enjoy and only do the ones I do. Once again, it's about balance. And it might be about going, well, listen, I know I've got 20 tasks to do today and 19 of those I don't really like. So I'm going to do the one that I do like and get some personal satisfaction and enjoyment out of. I'm going to do that first. Another way to do it is carve off a small piece of time. So if you're really busy, overworked, got lots on, it might be just about going, where can I find 5 minutes in the whole day, just 5 minutes to do something that I want to do and feel that guilty pleasure of doing it. Maybe you want to go down a YouTube rabbit hole. That's okay. That's your 5 minutes. Maybe you want to do something that personally you get enjoyment about. It could be like doodling or drawing. It could be scribbling on a whiteboard. It might be just playing with some Lego. Something that is just something that you enjoy for no other reason than it fills your boat. So I reckon that's a really important way to have a think about your energy levels, is to go towards things that you want to do and carve out a bit of time. So in terms of energy, sleep is always number one. Try and make sure you're having good sleep. If you're really struggling with sleep, have a listen to some other great podcasts. A friend of mine, Shay Morrison from the Goodnight Code, has a great podcast about sleep. In fact, I might get her on the podcast in future episodes to talk about some sleep hacks, but have a look for some good things you can do for sleep. Screens is number one. Number two, think about that introversion, extroversion balance. Which one are you naturally, maybe bring a bit more balance back into it. And number three, try and do a task that you actually enjoy. It'll help making the ones that you don't enjoy go much quicker. All right, well, that's the episode for today. Thanks for joining us again for the Creative Coach podcast. I hope you're enjoying these coaching sessions. They are one-to-one, you to me, and hopefully you're taking something away from every episode. If you do like it, please share us on all your social media platforms. It'd be great to have some more people join us in these coaching sessions. And if you'd like to reach out to me directly and ask any questions that I can answer either personally to you, which I'm happy to do, or here on the podcast, my email address is wade@thecreativecoach.com. That's wade@thecreativecoach.com, or you can just DM into any of our social channels. See you next time. And remember to say this out loud: I am creative because you are.